Hello, everyone. This is Celeste. You should be able to hear me now. Welcome to the BarMax webinar on preparing for the September bar. Obviously, this is a whole new world. We have not had to deal with this yet. I'm Celeste Pagano-Bowles. I'm a Harvard Law grad. I've been an attorney, a law professor, and I've been a federal judicial law clerk and a private bar tutor. And since August, I've been full-time here at BarMax, just working to improve our content and answer your questions where I can. And I'm part of the teams on grading and tutoring. So you see Mbe run all over the place. He's the owner of the company, but you're starting to see a lot of me too. And we're really just trying to be as helpful as we can with our content. For those of you who are BarMax students, I just want to point out very quickly before I get started that now, because people are always asking for replays of the webinars. Yeah, here they are. Office hours is here under the little clock for hours. Yeah, it's available on the iPad app right now. It's coming to the Android app soon. And it is also on the website. If you are a BarMax student, now you can get access to the webinars, but also to all the office hours that we did for, back in December and January and early February for our February students. And if you're not a BarMax student, you can still get replays of the webinars. Okay, so people always ask, will there be a video? I can't stay for the whole thing, and that's fine. So before I get to today's topic, I have to take care of my housekeeping. Would that I actually do that at home? I want to first let you know about the Q&A. I see questions coming in already, and I'm going to try to answer the Q&A live that I can. Although if it's about how should I study, when should I do multiple choice questions, can I work and study, all of that is the main topic here. So hold off until I talk, and then you'll see if you've got questions left. If you can, if those are your questions. If you have other questions about BarMax, about other general things about your situation, then you want to reach out to us in chat as well, because we have a couple good members of the BarMax team who are already answering your questions there. All right, this is the tutoring. This is what we're going to do today. I'm just going to start with a little background that's not on here on why is the bar in September? Why are there 3 different dates? Most of you know, but we'll do just a few minutes to catch us all up to date on what's going on during this crisis. Oh yeah, I see you doing some shout outs to each other in chat. That's good too. Make friends, why not? We're all here. Anyway, after those introductory comments, we're going to really get into the meat of how to study, how to prepare for, so that you will succeed at the September bar exam. Okay, so we'll talk about when and how to start, what you should do in the early phases of your study. Well, first, making a plan for yourself and a schedule so that you are confident as you go through the summer that what you're doing is going to get you to pass the bar. And then we'll talk about the strategies that we think you should use at each phase of your study. And then how do you memorize and cram all that stuff in your head for the home stretch? So that is our overall agenda today. So obviously, because of the COVID-19 crisis, states that used to cram 2,000 more people in a room to take a bar exam have decided that's not a good idea, right? So a lot of the large states have postponed their exams, some of the small states, but a lot of the large states have either postponed the exam to an NCBE is offering 3 dates. So NCBE, the National Conference of Bar Examiners, is the one who creates the MBE, the multiple choice portion of the bar exam in every state. And then also it creates the rest of the UBE for those of you taking the uniform bar exam. So if states want to use those parts of their exam, well, then they have to offer it on those days. Indiana has already gone off the range, said, I don't need you, NCBE. I'll just administer a 1-day remote exam on July 28th, and it's going to be short answer, which we've never told anyone what that means. Good luck, Indiana. I don't know, I have some ideas about that, but anyway, but the rest of the states have either said, hey, we're going to stick to our guns. Our bar exam is July 28th and 29th. Or they've said, our date is September 9th and 10th. That includes California, New York, Illinois, Pennsylvania. Those are big states, and some other states as well. And some states, including Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, a couple more, have said our bar exam is September 30th and October 1st. Still, other states have said, we want to spread you people out, so we're going to administer the July exam and one of the September exams. So you have a choice between 2 exam dates. And finally, there are a couple of states that say, well, we think it'll be July 28th and 29th, but we'll shove it back to September if needed. If needed, like you're just going to see how many people die between now and then, you know, I don't know. Maybe they're working out the logistics for a safe July exam. And then on top of that, some states are changing their exam locations, putting it in more locations than usual, or limiting the seating, limiting the number of people who can register and assigning different people different priority. And that, I know, is incredibly stressful. I've communicated with many of you in those states who are like, hello, I don't fit the first top tier category. Like, what do I do? So to know what's going on, first of all, this is a good overall website, ncbex.org. That's the NCBE's website. And they have a page called COVID-19 Updates that, you know, kind of contains a summary of all the information and links to the different jurisdictions. But the most important thing to watch is your jurisdiction's website to see what is changing, what's being updated. Now, today I'm focused mostly on the needs of those students who know that your exam has been postponed, and you either know or hope that you're taking a bar exam in September. If you're in one of those jurisdictions that's planning on July and just, you know, with a September date tucked in its back pocket if needed, then you need to prepare as if your exam is in July. So you're welcome to watch and, you know, look at study methods and things like that, although we do have other videos that will help you. But for now, you just need to get up every day and say, my job is to study, or, you know, the days that you study, my job is to prepare for the July exam. And you can adjust your schedule later if there's a big announcement in your state, but you don't want to be caught underprepared just because someone with a crystal ball told you, oh yeah, they're going to postpone it. Right? Don't believe unless you've heard an official announcement. And this is the same thing for those of you who hope to take your exam in September, but aren't sure whether you'll get a seat or not, so you might end up in February. Prepare as if it's for September until you hear otherwise, okay? Prepare as if it's happening. If things change, you make that announcement. You know, you can control what you get up and do every day, right? And there is so little that we can control in the world right now. It's crazy times, crazy times. So you can stick around if you're looking at next year or whatever, but today my focus is for those of you with September bar dates. Now, when should you start studying is one of the first questions I get, or, can I work and study, all these things. We'll go through all that. But you should start studying whenever you like, or maybe you're studying already. And this is the thing about BarMax. It's not too soon. Once you have one of our programs, you have it from the time you purchase it until the time you pass the bar. So if you end up purchasing it for this July and don't take the bar till next July, it doesn't matter. You have the program as long as you need to pass the bar. We don't limit you to an artificial time period. We don't charge you extra if you need to retake the course or start later or pause for whatever reason. And we don't make you jump through any hoops to get that extended access. You buy it today. We're here for you as long as you need us. So there's no reason not to start now. Now, again, if you're in BarMax, we have created updated study calendars. This shows, the September bar. We're not going to look at this in great detail. I'm going to talk about how to use it. And this shows, this shows September 9th. This shows September 30th. We obviously have different calendars for our California and UBE students, UBE September 9th, and our MBE students on whichever of the dates applies to them. Okay. That said, if you look at that calendar, this one does, our California target doesn't start for the September 9th exam, doesn't start until June 23rd. You don't have to wait until June 23rd to start. And if you start now, you might be doing a little bit less each day. So in other words, don't use the dates, but use the assignments and put them in your own calendar, spread out to the dates that you have. Okay. Notice also our calendars take, well, look at this. Here's July. We take certain days off. Those might not be the days you take off. You might not take off Tuesday. You might take off a different day of the week. So you don't want to be robotic about the dates. You want to use the exam to the point it's helpful for you for the assignments. And again, the UBE calendar or a UBE MBE calendar for the September 30th bar doesn't start until the middle of July. Because we wrote them for that normal 11-week time period that people study for the bar. Guess what? There is no normal time period to study for the bar, right? I love this guy here, right? It says this guy was working 50 hours a week and had 2 toddlers at home. I mean, this is just, 50 hours a week, a 1-hour commute each way, and 2 toddlers who take up all my free time. And, he took the time to do BarMax in the time that he had. He started to listen to lectures during his commute, did practice questions and flashcards a couple of hours a week for a couple of months, and took 1 week off work to cram. So we kind of recommend this method, even if for you take a little more time to cram. We recommend working questions, and I'll show you how, as the heart of our method. The outlines and the flashcards are great, but they're not the heart of the method. Some of the lectures are fantastic. They're not the heart of what's going to help you to pass the bar. It doesn't matter if you know the rule. It knows if you can, it matters if you can apply the rule the way it's tested. So this guy did a lot of practice questions, and then he started seeing improvements, read through as many prior essays as I could. I'll talk about that part of the study. And he got a wildly high passing score. Okay? So, and again, we have another testimonial here, someone raising 4 children, a political activist, community volunteer. Anyway, so if these people could plan a plan using our materials, then I'm confident that you can too. So this really, making a plan that works for you, first of all, involves, what date am I targeting, right? Question 1. But then much more, the real meat of it is, what's my life situation? Okay, someone asked me, can you address best practices for people who are working full-time and can't take much time off? Well, then you do what this guy did and you use the time that you have. For a lot of people, that's a couple hours, in the evening after work. Some people are more, like they have their best brain on in the morning, but for most people, it's that couple hours in the evening after work. It's letting your spouse put the children to bed, right? Or whatever it is that's in your life, like clearing 2-3 hours to study in the evening. I would rather you have an hour and 45 minutes of really focused time doing active learning with a method I'm going to show than that you spend like 8-9 hours just, poring over outlines and, going through flashcards. Okay. There's no need to spend 8 or 9 hours a day studying for the bar, especially if you have until September. Okay. And then someone else asked me, should I start working? When should I start working? Is it okay for me to work? Yes, it's okay for you to work. You have my permission to work. Now, I think in both of your cases, you want to try to get some leave time, or at the very least, drastically reduced hours in the period before the bar exam. So ideally leave time, right? 2 weeks, or 2.5 weeks. Okay, for my 3rd bar exam, I didn't do that, and I did do self-study using past real questions, which using past real questions is the method we recommend. But I had been a law professor. I'd already passed 2 bar exams and taught both contracts and property, so I felt pretty confident, and I had studied just part-time a little bit here and there for about 3-4 months when I got a job offer, and the person said, well, when could you start? And I said, tomorrow. And then I went, oh yeah, I got to take a couple days off at the end of July. And I worked that Monday, and they were like, you can take Monday if you want. I was like, no, I want to work. Like, I so wanted to work at that time that I worked the day before my bar exam. I don't recommend that, but I passed. I mean, it can work, right? I recommend that you try to take off, the 3 days of the bar, the day before the bar exam, the 2 days of your bar exam, the week before that, right? If you can. If you can't take all that time, then try to work half time for the last month before the bar exam, right? You want to give yourself some time, because that's the period, that last week, that last 2 weeks is the period when you cram, when you focus on memorization. Okay, I got another question that said, I need to memorize because I'm missing questions. If you're here, I want you to hang tight for our method, okay? You don't need to memorize now. If you memorize something today on, May 21st, that's where we are in the live webinar today. We're in, little past halfway through May, and you think you're going to remember it on September 30th, you're just torturing yourself, right? All the exceptions to the hearsay rule, you need to know them. You need to be able to recite when they apply. I don't want you to know that next week. I want you to know it before your bar exam. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to use your time well before that cramming and memorization period. And we'll talk about memorization strategies too. So I'm really covering a lot today. Someone also asked scheduling question, how do I avoid burnout? Don't study 9 hours a day. You have some time. Okay, and someone asked a related question about how do I focus during this crisis? Look, when this crisis started, we all had trouble focusing. But now we've sort of settled in. Okay, the world is weird. We live here now. Give yourself a few hours a day that you give yourself to study, and then give yourself permission to use your other hours for the other things that are either a joy or a priority in your life. So that might be working or parenting, or it might be cooking your way through Julia Child's The Art of French Cooking, or tending your garden, or, you know, working on yoga videos, right? Any of that, or any other activities that you do are fine for the rest of your day. But set aside those hours, and ideally that place. You know, obviously I've been working at home a long time. I have a home office. It's very comfortable and cozy for me. Not everyone has an entire room where they can close the door and keep the dog out, but try to have a space and a time where you study on the times that you study. It doesn't have to be every day, but I've found for a lot of students who do have other obligations, a couple hours every night, and then maybe a bigger chunk on the weekend, especially when they get to the point they're doing practice tests and stuff like that, that they need to spend a little more time, okay? So that's how you set up like your calendar, right? And then I say, that's just to set up the calendar, like the times you're gonna study, the times you're not gonna study, and that you're gonna do you in the rest of your life, right? You have a life. You can have a life. You have my permission to have a life. So that's setting up the calendar. Now, how do we fill it in, right? How do we fill in that calendar? What do we do each day? Now, I have had on the screen for the last 10 minutes, plan your work and work your plan. So what do we plan? What assignments do we put in that calendar? Again, if you have the BarMax calendar, wow, what am I doing? I'm scribbling instead of moving the screen. Okay. If you have the BarMax calendar, you can take these assignments and spread them out over the days in your own individual day planner, or these things are calendars, our phone calendars. And, you can do it that way. But let me talk about what you should be trying to accomplish at each stage here. Okay. We've got more testimonials. We may come back to these. For children, limited time to study. I picked these on purpose because I'm trying to convince you that you don't need all your time to do this, right? And, of course, all these people use BarMax. That goes without saying. So in the first stage of study, you're doing Mbe Topics. And Mbe is the multi-state bar exam, the multiple choice part of all of your bar exams, okay? And I want you to focus mostly on doing questions, okay? So when you're in the app, let me get back to the app. And again, it's the same on the website. You have, which course? So, you have all of the subjects lined up. So let's say I'm talking about joinder, a very heavily tested area of civil procedure. I can listen to the lecture. Now I do have retakers, and you may not need to listen to the lectures over and over again. At this point, but for some people it's going to be helpful, right? You do what's helpful for you. So this is a lecture on that section of civil procedure. I'm just going to start it so that, oh no, this one hasn't been downloaded yet. That was not a good move. I just updated my app. I deleted it, reinstalled, so I could see the beautiful new flashcards that are in there. Anyway, you'll use the lecture, but you will spend most of your time on multiple choice questions. And when we say spend most of your time on multiple choice questions, I want you to do them open book. I realize I left my outline across the room, but we have an open book. We have a printed copy of the outline for your course that you'll get when you, register for BarMax, right? So when you look at a question, and I demonstrated this a bit in the last webinar as well. So you should really go back and watch the Mbe Basics webinar, but we want you to, I just wanted to show you, this is one of the longer lectures and it's just under an hour. So you are not listening to
the next block of materials I'd like to talk
here's our lecture
about.
Anyway,
Involved.
That was just to show you the lectures. Some of them are 10 minutes because it's just a small segment of a short subject. And some of them are over an hour, but most of them are, 30, 40 minutes, maybe an hour like this one. So it's not an overwhelming amount of lectures. The lecture is broken into 7 segments. So it's not, 40 hours of lecture or whatever. Anyway, when you do that lecture, you'll see that after it comes some flashcards that you can practice, okay? Or you can save those for later. When you do the flashcards, if you get them right, well, here, I'll show you. You can, you can say, oh, gee, I don't know the answer to this one. So or I guessed wrong, so I'm gonna get it wrong. I'm gonna say I got it wrong. Then you see at the bottom how they're sorted into correct and incorrect answers. I'm hoping you can see that on Zoom. Anyway, you can go back over just the ones you got wrong, the same way you would do with physical flashcards. But the real thing you should get to is multiple choice, okay? Now here, there are 2 multiple choice questions on Joinder, and I'll show you in a few minutes where you'll find other multiple choice questions in the app. But these 2 questions, in civil procedure, it's a small number. But in all the other subjects, it might be 10 questions, 6 questions, 12, depending on how heavily tested. We give samples of the different questions after each subject. We want you to actually stop when you read that question and go watch the Mbe Basics webinar if you haven't watched this in detail, if you want to see me act it out in detail. But we want you to open your outline. You can use the paper book, or you can use the outline, right here. Sometimes it's good to have, if you've got a device like this and a computer, then have the questions open on the device and the outline open on the computer. Why not? Or if you're just, working while you're out and about, you can just use your device and not carry the outline. The book's about 1 inch thick. It doesn't weigh 800 pounds or anything like that. So you could take it with you either way. But I want you to go and actually reread the rule that applies to answer that question. And not only do I want you to read the rule that goes with the right answer, I want you to read the rule that goes with each wrong answer. For most students, this is incredibly uncomfortable. But what we're teaching you to do is to use the questions themselves. First, the questions after the lectures. Here, accomplice liability and crimes, another tricky area, and actually, yeah, that one is going to be, and then here there are 12 because it's a heavily tested area. I'm going to put my app, see up in the upper right there? I'm putting my app into study mode. So when I finally do go through and pick an answer to this question, okay, when I finally pick an answer to this question, I'll get an explanation to that answer and all the other answers. Most students just want to start, take their best guess, and pick an answer choice. And even after they watch my webinar or my office hours on how to study for the MBE, they still don't get it. They still say, well, I look it up if I don't know it. No, I'm telling you, look it up until you can recite it. Look at, they go, well, I got it down to 2. I could eliminate 2 answers and then I took a guess. How did you eliminate those answers? Could you explain to someone the rule of why you eliminated those answers? Our goal is not to get through the questions. Your goal is not to get through the questions. Your goal is to learn the law as it's applied in the questions. So by using the questions alongside the outline, now the outline comes alive. Now the outline actually makes sense. Those rules are not out in the ether. They're connected to a set of facts. Also, by forcing yourself to find and articulate the reason for the right and wrong answers, you are engaged in a much more active style of learning. This is active learning, which results in greater comprehension, greater retention, and memorization. But again, you're not focused on memorizing at this point. You're focused on understanding the reasoning behind each question. Okay? I don't care what your percentages are in this part of the course. You're taking the exam in September. I really care about your percentages then, right? I don't care about your percentages in May and June and even July. I mean, I'm hoping they're getting better, but that's not my main concern. I mean, you can go look at them. You can look at your analytics. And I think I did some fakey Jake questions. So you can see I got, I have a low score on civil procedure. I went and guessed some randomly in order to check an app feature. Anyway, you can see how many questions there are in each category, and you can and you can track your analytics. But I think some people get too interested in that. I don't care about your analytics. I care about your learning. Okay, and I want you to engage in an active style of learning so that you actually know how the rules work. So getting back to my presentation, right? You're doing the lecture questions and study questions. So, hang on, let me show you the study aid questions. So after you've done those 10 questions after each lecture subject, maybe 50, or so questions for each subject in the MBE, civil procedure, crimes, contracts, constitutional law, evidence, real problem, blah, 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 right? After you've done that, you can go over here, see where I hit the thumbtack in the upper right of the app. It's called filter on the website, but up here it's a little thumbtack. And I can say, okay, now I want to look at all the MBE questions. And you have, for contracts, 200 and something questions here. I'm scrolling through. How many is it? 200 and wow. Contracts is good. 265 past questions that are still, good valid law. They love to test the same issues over and over again. So even though some of these questions are old, they're really helpful for studying. The NCBE has released very few MBE questions compared to, say, the LSAT, where they release full exams every year. They give some of them away for people to study from. NCBE does not do that. They've released a handful of exams over the years. So we have every question. Okay. The most recent thing they released, I'm going to talk about these online practice exams in a minute. See that in the middle, but we're skipping that for now. The most recent thing they released was the Mbe Study Aid. Okay. This has 30 questions for civil procedure, 30 questions for constitutional law, 30 questions for contracts. You can see where I'm going. You have 210 questions here. I like these a lot, and I think these are very valuable. And I actually, when I'm tutoring, talking to students, I recommend that they do these even before they do the ones up here, because these are the most recently released. The Mbe Study Aid was released just a few years ago, a couple of years after civil procedure was added to the exam in 2015 to provide more of a bank of questions for students to study from. You can buy it on the NCBE website, or you get it as part of your BarMax program, the California UBE or MBE program. We include all these questions. So I think these questions are gold because they're the most recently released. That's the latest time the NCBE has tipped its hand about how it wants to ask questions. Yeah, the study aid, let's see, it's on the app at the bottom, and on the computer version, I have to check in the browser, but in the computer version, it's listed at the bottom of the page too, under the online practice exams. It's just everything is horizontal. Okay, so those study aid questions are what I recommend that you do next. And then the third thing to prepare for the MBE is to practice essays. Now at this point, you have two goals while you're practicing those essays. One is for content, okay, to learn the law, and the other is for writing practice, to make sure that your format and style of writing that you're using in doing the essays is what's going to get you points on the exam. So guess what? I want you to do these. I'm talking about the first phase of your study here, June, July, okay? I want you to do these open book too. Meaning, I'm going to disappear off camera here and get my outline because it's driving me crazy that I don't have it in my hand. I apologize. It's bad form to disappear during a Zoom, isn't it? I think it is. I did lock my dog out of the room. Anyway, this is what the books look like, okay? So if you're a paper kind of person, then, you go ahead and you see I've marked certain topics here. The essay topics I've marked with little tabs. You might have more elaborate systems of marking or tabbing things and make this your own, right? But this is my California one, but I get them all. So you can open the outline and go, oh my gosh, this looks like it's a question about some kind of future interest. I'm going to look that stuff up. I'm going to go through it again because I can't tell what this is, right? So then you take a look at it, or you're like, is there an easement here? I don't know if there's an easement here. Then you go to the page where we talk about the ways that an easement can be created. And you're like, do I hit all the elements of this or don't I? Fabulous, isn't it? So you cheat, right? Just cheat. Write the essays that way the first time. Write a couple essays, or I say in the, in the BarMax outline, or in the BarMax calendar, we said you can outline 2 essays and write 1. Hey, if you want writing practice, then write all 3. Why not, right? But if you just want content practice, like, do I know this stuff? Do I apply the right facts to get to the conclusion? Do I use the right rule? Did I pick the right rule when I looked in my online outline or in my book? Did I pick the right rule? And then secondly, did I apply the right facts? Did I analyze the facts correctly? So you can do that by just jotting a skeleton, what I call an outline, which is confusing because we call this an outline. But, a skeleton or a roadmap of your answer, just a few words to say what you would answer for each section of that essay question. We talk about this more in the essay webinar and in the essays office hour, but I want you during that phase of study to be using essay questions, again, as learning tools. Questions are not testing tools for you in June and July. Okay, they're not testing tools. They're learning tools. They're a rich mine of data about what gets tested on this exam. Why? Because these people like to test the same issues over and over again, especially in the moldy oldies, like contracts and real property. Okay. After that, you're going to do the essay topics in much the same way. Oh, by the way, I didn't say this. Writing practice, how do you know if your writing practice is any good? Well, duh, you submit a couple for review. So at this first stage of your study, when you do a criminal law and procedure question, or you do an evidence question, you upload it through the website, and do I have it here? I may not, because I don't have access. Oh, is it in my profile? I don't know where it is. Anyway, support will help you if you can't figure it out. Oh no, you have to do it on a computer. That's right. You have to do it on a computer, and this is the app. Anyway, go on a computer, take the Word version of your document and upload it to BarMax, and a grader will get back to you. In these early stages of the process, the grader will get back to you very quickly. As more and more of you are sending in, tsunamis of essays, it takes a few days, but we do try to be as prompt about that as we can. We can't handle a bunch of essays the week before the exam, but they're cut off. But we want you to submit essays very early in the process so that you can make sure your writing is on point, right? And if you know your writing is on point, then here in the second stage of your study, you're learning the essay topics, your agency and partnerships, your corporations. If you're in California, it's professional responsibility and community property, right? Depending on which course you're taking is which essay subjects you need to know. The ones that are appropriate for your exam. And you're going to be using them for content study at this point, which means if you're confident about your writing, just go ahead and write that little skeleton, okay? Write that little roadmap of your answer and then check it against the answers that have been given. Now, how do you check your answers when you're doing these little roadmaps? Well, if you're using MEE questions, that's a multi-state essay exam that applies to all of our UBE students, there is a lengthy analysis included in each of the practice questions. I don't think I stuffed one in here, although that might be helpful, wouldn't it? It would be helpful if I wasn't scribbling on my screen constantly. But let me see, I'll grab one for you. I have all kinds of crazy files. I should probably stop sharing. Anyway, I'll show that later if we have time. But it's a lengthy analysis. We file it under point sheet because it also shows what percentage of points the graders should give to each type of question, okay? So it says like this issue here is there, here's what we were testing, here's the law behind it, it should be worth about 25% of the grade. And then this issue over here, here's the law we were testing, So it's a lengthy explanation, and it doesn't look anything like your answer will look, but it has, because it cites cases and all this stuff you don't need to do. But it has the rule and the application that you can compare to your own little skeleton to see if you got it right or wrong. Okay, so that's what you should do when you're doing content study. You write that little skeleton and you compare it to the NCBE analysis or point sheet. If you're in California, California has given sample answers, meaning high scoring student answers to every question. So you do your little outline, you're looking at the book for the rules, and then you compare and you see if you missed any major issues. there's 2 samples. If they both cover an issue at length that you missed, okay, that's something you need to learn to look out for. And you want to look at their application. Now, the good thing about using student sample essays is that you get an idea what a student sample essay would look like, what yours should look like. The bad thing is there are some errors, they leave errors intact. So if you see something that looks a little off, or they're talking about, one of the answers talks about a non-issue that the other answer doesn't talk about, and you go, then you can either ignore that part, or if it looks wrong, check it against the rule and make sure you know the right rule. But even that person with an error, not only did they pass the bar exam, but that was considered one of the best answers to that question, which proves that your answers don't have to be perfect to get a high score. That's relieving. But they do, it does help to follow a pretty strict IRAC format to make it clear where everything is, and apply, use all the facts. So you want to submit some early in the process, make sure you have that down, and then use them mostly for content study. Now you can continue to submit if you feel like you want to work on your writing. I say, submit for California professional responsibility, for example, a highly tested area. Submit ones that you're not sure about. But most of all, you want to be doing those little outlines and comparing them to the sample or model materials we have. Oh, we do have model answers from New York and Minnesota that are applicable to our UBE students, and those are provided for like the last 5 years or so. Okay, during this second phase of study, I also want you to not ignore the performance part of your test. In fact, if you're hanging around here but planning to take the bar exam like next year or whatever, it looks like I'm crossing it on. I'm trying to highlight it. Let's do this. Let's get rid of that and go like this instead. Woo! There we go. If you have plenty of time before your bar exam, or you know someone who does, hey, start by learning performance tests. Why? Because performance tests, now this is the California Performance Test or the MPT, the Multi-State Performance Test that is administered in all the UBE jurisdictions and a couple of other jurisdictions use the MPT. Either way, ever since California changed its format in 2017, the MPT and the California Performance Tests are basically the same thing. They follow the same format. You have 90 minutes. You need to sketch out an outline and organize a whole file's worth of material, and then you need to write an answer. And the question requires you to perform a legal task, like write a brief, write a memo. And again, if you don't know much about that, I did do a webinar on the MPT and California Performance Test that you can go watch in one of those replays. But what should you do in this second phase of study? While you're studying the essay topics, you should also read a couple of those MPTs and just develop an organizing and outlining system that works for you. I recommend one. I kind of sketched it out in that webinar I did. I recommend a system for organizing the information, and I did it in a little bit more detail in an office hour back in January. And I will do that again, I think, in an upcoming office hour for BarMax students. If that system works for you, I would like you to try it. If it works for you, then use it. If you need something more elaborate or less or different, then use what works for you. You need to find something that will get you to not just a skeleton roadmap, but a pretty solid roadmap of your answer in 45 minutes. You have a whole bunch of stuff to work with. You don't want to miss facts, and you want to make sure that you're including everything, okay? So it is kind of still a skeleton. It's just a skeleton of a bigger thing, right? This answer. So you want to get to where you can do that in 45 minutes, because on the MPT, for example, those of you who are UBE students, you have you know, I call it 45 minutes to outline and 45 minutes to write. Really, you have 90 minutes to complete each task because they hand you 2 tasks and give you 3 hours. So if you don't break it down like this, a lot of people score a lot higher on the first task than the second sometimes. That can change. Like this past administration, the first task was very difficult. So people's score was the other way around. But often people who are doing well will still blow the second task because they don't allocate their time well. So you want to use some time in here to develop a system that works for you. And if you also want to use it for writing practice, then submit some of this for grading. By the way, if you're not a BarMax student, and you're all welcome to be in this webinar today, you can purchase BarMax grading as a separate product, separate from the BarMax course. You can call support or go to our website, but I think it's $30 an essay, or you just buy a 10-pack for $200, which is honestly a great deal because it's people with, you know, my qualifications and similar, who, or former bar graders, some of them, who are reviewing your essays and giving you feedback. And to get that for $20, like when, you know, you think of what attorney time costs, that's actually a really good deal. So we, you know, do recommend that people buy essay reviews. I just want you to be strategic about how you use them. Use them for the writing practice at this stage of the game. In your third stage of review, okay, this is what we call just review. Okay, now you're doing essays, some for content reviews still, checking things off, and others you're doing timed. You're starting to do essays for timed practice. Okay, so after you've been through all the topics, and again, I'll show you the 11-week version of the calendar, but you may have more time, right? So when you're going the first time through the subjects here, you know, notice you get 2 days for contracts. Well, if you're studying just a few hours a day and spreading it out over, you know, a lot more time, then maybe you give yourself 3 days for contracts the first time through. And then the way that we've done it here is in the last month before the exam. Now, again, this is September 30th, but depending on whether your exam is the 9th or September 30th, you know, it's 1 or 2 days for review of each subject. The essay subjects, and this is UBE, California also has its own essay subjects. The essay subjects, they tend to be shorter. They tend to test fewer doctrines. So some of them are pretty easy to cover in a day. Look, UBE family law, who gets the money, who gets the kid, right? Divorce, who gets the money, who gets the kid? Pretty much comes down to that, right? One of those 2 fact patterns and the different permutations. If you are looking at essays, you'll see the different fact patterns they love to test. They throw an adopted kid into all of these like wills and trust questions. Like there's anybody in the universe left who doesn't know that an adopted child has all the same rights as a natural child. But anyway, I digress. You know, so you'll know by doing these essays what it is that they test. Oh, I'm sorry, I was on the right app. Let's go back down, go back down. So here we are, we're going through essays. So I was just showing you the calendar to show you that this is like the last month in a traditional bar study calendar. You're going through them again for essays and content practice, and you're doing more MBEs. This is when, if you have not already done all the MBE questions at the top of the page, the 265 contracts or whatever, you continue working through those. And then, and you'll write this into your schedule, it's on the traditional calendars, and you can write it into the schedule that works for you. You start beginning to do timed practice tests. Well, guess what? Those OPEs, online practice exams, contain 100 multiple choice questions each. So hopefully at this point, you know, if you've done the other, even if you finished all the MBE questions before, the OPEs, the online practice exams, They give you 100 more questions each, and there are 4 of them. So that's 400 new questions. Again, all real bar exam questions from past bar exams. They give you that. So that's more study material. Their assessment material, because you're going to do those timed. You have 3 hours. You sit down in a place that's quiet, but not too quiet, kind of like the exam, right? And there's little apps that you can say, exam background noise. Literally, like they'll have like people coughing or tapping their pencil or whatever it is, so that you can practice dealing with distractions, because you're not going to be in a monastery when you take the test, most likely, right? We don't know. There'll probably be fewer distractions now that they're not cramming 3,000 people in a room. But you never know. You could be in the room with the person who has the nervous breakdown on question 4, right? Oh my gosh, I've had stories from students. I literally had a student who went to the bathroom, vomited, and left the first time she took a bar exam. Don't do that, please. Anyway, you could be sitting next to her. You don't want to do that. Okay. You want that to not be a distraction to you. So you want to be doing timed practice tests under conditions that are a little bit like the real test. And then you don't just use it to go, oh, I got this percentage. Okay, move on. No, now you have 100 new sources of data. You have 100 new learning materials. Not just the ones you got wrong, the ones you got right. Make sure you know why all the wrong answers are wrong and all the right answers are right. People hate to clear their data because they want to track their percentages. But I think it's great to clear your data. When you clear your data, you clear all your multiple choice history. You don't have to clear your answered flashcards unless you're ready. And I don't know why you'd clear your lecture progress, but I love clearing the multiple choice. Now I need to clear it between tutoring students, so my answers look clean. But why not clear it? Because then if you look at these questions again for study purposes, you have to kind of think through them again. You may have already marked whether they were right or wrong, because you'll have these exams in hard copy as well as on the computer. All right, so during that phase, you will do the online practice exams spaced out, on different Saturdays. Maybe that works for you, or maybe you have a day during the week you like to use. And you'll also do some MEE and MEPT practice timed at least once. You should force yourself if you're worried about your NPT at all. Some people aren't worried about the performance test. I'm sorry, I wrote MPT, but I meant MPT or California PT, because this all applies to both in terms of do it timed under real conditions. So for California people, that's going to mean do 2 essays and a performance test back to back, because that's what they're going to expect of you on one of the half days of your bar exam. For the UBE people, do 2 MPTs back to back. Print them out, have them next to you, hit your timer and go, right? To see what you can do under timed conditions if you're at all concerned about it. If you're the type of person who just loves processing new information and finds it really easy to read fast and pull all this stuff together, then great. You may not be practicing the MPT as much, but a lot of people want to make sure that their performance tests don't drag down their score. So you'll practice those, okay? You'll practice MEEs as well. Now, and then the other thing you'll do with MPTs, you'll do a couple timed just to feel like you have the timing down, because it's such a timing issue on the performance test. Somebody asked, I saw it flash by, how many should I do? But it's like, if you get it to where your timing is okay, then you don't have to do anymore. At that point, all you should do is read the assignment memo and and then skip everything and just read the point sheet and or sample answer. Why? Because you want to look for weird tasks. You look at the assignment memo and go, how would I set this up? What does a letter to a client look like? Look at the sample answer, and then you get an idea. Or what do they mean, draft a fact statement for an arbitration? Okay, how should that look? What do they mean, revise a contract? Okay, that one actually, all they expected people to do was pick the contract provisions that were against the client's needs and, cross out the words. You could, I don't know if there's strike through in the software, but, find some way to change the words. I think you can underline where you put in new wording or something like that. Like literally all they wanted you to do was take a few little sections of this contract to show that you could read the contract and see which parts did not meet your client's needs based on the client interview. They did not want you to revise the whole contract. The instructions said revise the sections of the contract that need revision. So they just wanted you to take some sentences and change some words, and that was it. And then the explanation for each to say, here's why I changed this, here's what it said, here's what our client wanted, and how this meets their needs instead. Wow, it was much simpler than it looked. But by reading past memos and point sheets, you'll get the idea how the instructions translate to a finished product. So during this period of review, just flip through some, see what they look like. They will not likely do a contract redraft based on a client interview, just like that one again. But by looking at enough of them that you get familiar with what it is that they will, the range of things that you as a lawyer might be asked to do, that they might test on, then you will start to get a better feel for it. The home stretch. Oh, and during this part, develop memorization tools. Oh, I almost skipped this. This part is fun. Okay, during your review section, this is when you memorize. People go, how should I memorize? The same way that has worked for you in the past, right? If you did flashcards to get you through some subject in law school, then do flashcards. Mayron, the founder of this company, total flashcard guy, right? Use our flashcards, they're helpful, but sometimes making your own flashcards, writing them out is going to give you that, what do they call that? Kinesthetic, you're using your hand and your eye as well as your brain, right? All at the same time. It'll help you to memorize. And then you have that little stack and you can carry it with you everywhere, and you can flip through it, and get rid of the ones you know really well and keep flipping through. So you'll develop those flashcards. Some people aren't so much flashcard people, but they like to write out their outline. I don't have an example of that here, but I have some examples of other memorization tools, but just outline. Some people like to rewrite like kind of all the key points in their outline themselves, either by hand or typing, and by rewriting it, they remember it more. If you were an outliner in law school and outlining helped you, you'll take our outline, you'll write your own condensed version of the parts that you need, because you know that you need help remembering those rules. Okay, so this is what, like some people like flashcards that are, list the hearsay exceptions if the declarant's unavailable, right? Or when is former testimony unavailable, right? How detailed your flashcard is up to you. Maybe you like charts, like, okay, which ones are exemptions and which ones are exceptions? Which one are anyone, I crossed out my N, anyone, and which ones are declarant unavailable? Then you write a little list. Now, obviously, you need to know a lot more about what constitutes a dying declaration. When does something qualify as a present sense impression, right? You don't have to memorize all this right now. I just scribbled this out as an example of how I might memorize these things if I weren't having trouble with the details of the rules, but I needed to know which categories things went in. Or maybe I would take this and flesh it out with the details in smaller pencil underneath. I had a student who did this with the entire secured transactions course. This is the whiteboard that was behind her when we were studying secured transactions. And I actually recommended some edits to it. So don't look at this as a perfect document. But I mean, it's the scribblings of a madwoman or a genius, depending on how you look at it, right? Boy, she understood secure transactions, though, after working with it. She created it on that big whiteboard behind her desk. And as we were talking through some of the problems together, she'd go like this. And then tell me the answer, right? Because she was plugging the problems into the rules, where she's talking through essay question, you know, just the questions, the essay questions. And she's going, okay, so maybe you do that on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard like that student did. However it is that you memorize. And then, you know, she made a whiteboard for those subjects and then took a picture of it. And then she had it, right? I said, I need that picture. Oh, I need that picture. So if that's what works for you, do it. So in other words, during your review month or so, and it may be more than a month if you're spreading out your studying, but it's not 9 hours a day, you're going to be, where am I? During this review stage, you're going to be developing those tools. You're going to be writing those flashcards. You're going to be creating those outlines. You don't have to memorize everything about them, but you're going to start developing them now. And you're still doing practice. In that final home stretch, you've done your online practice exams. You've reviewed those 400 questions. You're in the last, you know, and you may continue to review them again if you want. But in the last few days before the exam, you're reviewing your memorization tools. You're making sure that you look at those outlines and those flashcards that you made, that you're doing some more questions, just keeping yourself moving on those multiple choice questions, that you're reviewing questions, you know, again, clear your data, why not? And then I called it optional, but I actually think it's really helpful. So maybe I shouldn't have, to just read and outline. I already talked about reading and outlining performance tests, right? Like just look at the point sheet and figure out, oh no, this would be doing a whole one. I'm sorry, this would be doing a whole one. For people that are still working on organizing the material, you can do one. But this is more important. The essays, your California essay questions or your MEE essay questions, do a whole bunch of those. That's more important. That last week before the exam, remember, there are essays on all of the multiple choice topics as well as essay topics. So you want to make sure that you've read through them, okay? Because they may test those same issues in either part of the exam, okay? So you read through the question, you write your skeleton of an answer, you jump to the sample or the point sheet and check it. You set it aside, you do another one. Boom, boom, boom. You just review them. You're not writing them out at this point. Again, if you want to submit some essays to see how you're doing, you can do it in here. You can submit some of your timed ones if you're concerned. If you say, am I producing a good California essay in 1 hour? Am I producing a good MEE essay in 1 hour? Then sure, turn in a couple at this point. So look, you get 10 free wins with the BarMax program, right? So not free, I mean, it's included in your program. So, you know, think about turning in, you know, about 5 as samples, open book toward the beginning, just to see how you're doing. Think about turning in 2 or 3 as performance tests. You can turn in performance tests for essay review and then save the last couple for your timed tests. Maybe a timed performance test and a couple of timed essays. So then you get to evaluate, how am I doing with writing structure at the beginning? How am I doing with, you know, formatting a performance test in the middle? How am I doing with expressing what I've memorized or what I'm working on memorizing here. You know, create that crazy outline for evidence and then do an evidence essay timed, right? So that's what you'll be doing while you're developing your memorization tools. In the end, that final week before the exam, you'll review a lot of essays. You won't write them out. You'll just review them, jot a few words, and look at the answer. Okay, so that's the method we recommend for studying. Oh, and the other thing you have to do to prepare is rest. You have to rest. You have to eat well. You have to hydrate. Thank you. That all matters. You have to be at your best game. This is not a 1-hour exam. It is an endurance test as well as a test of knowledge and skill. So you want to be at your physical best for the endurance part of this test. All right, so I have covered an awful lot, and I'm sorry, I'm really scribbling a lot today. I didn't stop for Q&A even once. I'm going to take a few Q&A, and then I'm going to kind of remind you what we're offering, and then I'll see if I can do any remaining Q&A. But I hope I've answered most of your questions as I've gone along. For some reason, my mouse isn't working. That's fun. Here we go. I'm going to start about midway through because I think I answered a lot of these. How many hours do normally students who pass study roughly? Again, I gave you one sample that I've seen, which is the people who study a few hours a night and then a little more on the weekend, and then they take off more time toward the end. That works for people. Of course, I know people who study full time and do nothing but study and who pass. So I see people in both categories who pass, but I think since you have more time, that you can space it out a little more. There is no BarMax forum. Someone's asking if we have a forum where BarMax students can connect to each other. What we do have is message boards for each of the multiple choice questions. So you can connect there. When you're in the multiple choice question, for example, if you're down here, let's see if this one has much going on. Nah, that doesn't have a lot going on. You know what? We need older questions that have more action on the board, let's say. Let me pick an older question. Let's pick some torts questions. And yeah. Okay, so here there's only 2, but sometimes there's a whole lot. Here, 3. All right, so you can see, and sorry, it took me a minute to find a sample. You can see we've got the question, you can read the rule, you know, you're going to read the rules for the right answers and the wrong answers. You're not going to be in a hurry to pick one. And if you still have questions after you do the answer explanation, you can look there. And in a lot of them, like, okay, here's one that's very, very active. People are explaining, and a lot of them, there's instructors have stepped in also to explain the answer choices. And the ones that are after the lectures, the instructors have stepped in to explain the answer choices, but the students can also communicate with each other through those forums. So that's one way that students can connect with each other. We've talked about creating another forum because BarMax students, a lot of you do want to connect with each other, and but we don't have that tool yet. People connect with each other in chat in these webinars and office hours, so you can give that a try too, anonymous. Okay, how to ask questions on substantive law? That is a legitimate question. Okay, if you have a question on substantive law, you can hit the support link over here on the app. So yeah, you can see, sorry, let's get it out of here. But here I am, I hit the menu. The menu's that little 3 lines up at the top, or yeah. And then one of the choices here is support. So you can actually get support, like tech support, like where do I find this? You know, like, hang on, I downloaded the essay packet and I can't find such and such, or this thing over here isn't working on my iPad, whatever support you need, or my book hasn't arrived yet. I need you to send me my book, or I took the course in 2018 and never got a book. Now I want one. Because, you know, that's another improvement to the course is the hardcover books. Any of those questions, you can go to support. But if you put a substantive question there, it will get routed to BarMax content, and the content team will try to answer it in a reasonable time. Even already, I'm going to tell you, we were 4 days lag at one point recently, and now we're caught up, but it can, you know, it's a shared resource. If you want to ask a lot of content questions, or there's a whole area of law you need help with, at that point, we recommend tutoring. So you can submit content questions right there through the app, but then beyond that, we would say go for tutoring. So, Mariam, right now we don't know about California switching to an online format, but, you know, again, you have to just keep your eye on the California bar website and any announcements for that. Okay, I answered that one. So if we don't memorize now, what do? You do questions open book, okay, in the way that I described. And again, so the essay workshops and essay outlines, when people sometimes ask, like, hey, in the calendar, it says do the essay workshop. The essay workshop is just this little lecture at the top of the essays. Let me show you where I got to it. You see where up in the upper right, where you click that little thumbtack, you can go to your full course, you can go to your MBE questions, or you can go to your essays. I actually don't recommend you do the essays off this tool. If you're a BarMax student, you download your welcome packet when you first join, and then you have PDFs of all the essays. In fact, if you go to the point sheets, you have the PDF of all the essays and analyses for UBE, or if you go to the sample answers for California, you have PDFs of all the questions and all the sample answers. I prefer working off the PDFs, but anyway, if you do go to this part of the app or the website, you'll see that the essay workshop is at the top. That used to be the only instruction that we offered on the additional instruction we offered on the essays, that and a blog where we had some more advice about essays. Now we have office hours that are posted in the app. This wasn't there before. So office hours are not listed in the assignments, but you can look at them to the extent they're helpful. In fact, some of them I really recommend. I did subject by subject office hours on the MBE subjects, like evidence, the constitutional law. There are certain wrong answers that come up again and again in constitutional law, easy to look for. There's a mindset and approach to evidence that I think will help you get more questions correct in terms of not missing facts. I did a 2-session office hour on performance test and essays. So basically those are videos that you can watch. These webinars have been running about 2 hours, but the office hours tended to go, I don't know, a little over an hour or something. So, well, I didn't mean to open it. Oh, good Lord, no. Yikes, that was a mistake. I'll turn this off if that causes any problems. Anyway, so that's where the essay workshop is, but you could also watch the office hours and webinars on those topics. And where you can find the essay questions is in your welcome packet under essays. I stopped broadcasting somehow. Let's see if I can do it again. Yay, I'm broadcasting again. Hooray. Because someone wants to know where to find their essays. Oh no, this is going to crash again. I really did not mean to load a video. The joys of live webinars. Anyway, if you're having trouble reaching the essays in your welcome packet, contact support. But where it is under your profile, the little profile, the little head in the circle. Okay? And then you can download your welcome packet and all your essays are there. Are the lectures helpful or a waste? It depends whether you find them helpful or not. Okay, we think the most helpful part of the course, despite the fact that we've hired some of, some really stellar lecturers, we think the most helpful part of the course is going through past questions using, open book, using the outline. Not using the outline as a backup or a crutch, but using the outline to make sure you're sure. Using the outline as a learning tool in conjunction with a question. We think that that's the best way. And let's see, I lost that question. Maybe somebody took care of it for me. Okay, Swatantar asks, for those of us who can't get a seat in our home jurisdiction, would you recommend applying for a seat in another UBE jurisdiction? I thought about that. There are a couple of small states that have, the deadline had not passed yet when I, was thinking about this. Now, I don't remember offhand. I think there are some that still have late enough deadlines so that you could do it. But you really have to think about your life goals. If you're in Massachusetts or New York, which are, I think, the states right now where people are having trouble getting seats, maybe Missouri, I'm feeling like there's one more, but in the states where people are having trouble getting seats, isn't that where you want to practice? If you get your UBE score in one jurisdiction, then you have to reapply, you're paying that whole fee, you have to familiarize yourself with the process. You're not automatically a lawyer in Massachusetts or New York after you go past the bar somewhere else. You have to still go through character and fitness. You have to do all of the requirements to be a New York lawyer. So it might be better just to wait until you can get a seat. But that's really dependent on your own life situation. If you just need bar exam passage, for example, for a federal job, you got a federal job lined up, yeah, take the bar anywhere. You see what I mean? But if you need to be a lawyer in your home jurisdiction, you're making yourself jump through a few extra hoops to get there. So you have to kind of weigh whether that's right for you. And then, Kuljit, you have a similar question about how transferring scores works, and it varies by jurisdiction. So you would have to go to the New York BOLE, the BOLE, Board of Law Examiners, and also the bar admissions rules for score transfers, because there is a procedure for that, and it's different in every state, and it can be cumbersome. Are you allowed to mark on the absolute? Yes. Okay, on the actual multiple choice test, so that you can circle important pieces of info. Marie, yes, I do this. Now, if they switch to an online exam, which again, we don't have any indication that they're going to, but who knows, right? Then they would probably do like the LSAT, where you can at least highlight certain important bits with your finger, because LSAT switched to online this year, and it resembled our online LSAT platform, but then we have a great development team. We were able to create a product just like it. So if anything like that does happen, we'll create something that looks like the real exam in time to help you study. But it's probably not going to happen. You have a paper test. You are allowed to mark on your paper test. I think especially for essays and for the performance tests, man, I write a lot in the margin on a performance test. I highlight, I scribble marks on, probably every page of a performance test, which is, 20 pages. So yes, you can mark, and I recommend it. I think some of us tend to be more active learners when our pencil's moving. Should we spend time memorizing flashcards after each lecture? I hope by now, because that question was asked over an hour or almost an hour ago. No, don't memorize the flashcards after each lecture, okay? You can use the flashcards if you want to make sure that the law is familiar, but you don't have to have it memorized at that point. What we want is for you to understand how it applies to actual questions. This is uncomfortable for students. This is uncomfortable for students when they're doing it for the first time. When they begin like using the questions as teaching tools, but the students who have switched from the just pick an answer, get through as many questions as you can method, find that they're retaining a lot more. It's like a little light bulb goes off and their learning process becomes more effective. And that's what we want for you. And Mbe, if you don't see the Mbe Study Aid, reach out to support, but it's not called Study Aid. It's just 30 questions in the website. So you'll see civil procedure, 0 out of 30, because you haven't answered them yet. Constitutional laws, 0 out of 30. That's what it looks like in the website. So you probably have it at the bottom of the page before the OPEs, and if not, reach out to support and they can help you. So I got that question twice. Use the Mbe Study Aid instead of the OPE. Marna, use the Mbe Study Aid. And the questions at the top, the 200 torts questions, the 200 something real property questions, the 200, use those two. Don't use the OPEs yet. Wait until you're in that phase of your study where you're ready to start doing timed tests, where you're beginning to develop your memorization. And you'll get a bunch wrong the first OPE because it's still fairly early in that review process, but you'll get used to doing timed tests. By the time you get to the 4th OPE, you'll be getting good at them. So Marna, save those OPEs for when you're ready to do time tests so that those 400 questions are fresh to you. Okay, in the iPad, I cannot find the answers to the essays. Is that possible to get only by downloading the welcome package? Vincenzo Senatore, che bello nome. Vincenzo, sì, yes, I'm sorry, I answered in Italian. You may not be even speaking Italian. You can only get those by downloading the welcome package. That's where you get the answers. So you do need to have some kind of computer to download them onto. Let us know if you need help, but that welcome packet with all the answers that's where to get it. How and where can we upload our essays? Tamina, so you go to the BarMax website and in on the browser, let me see hang on. I have to, I'll see if I can do this. But anyway, you go to the browser, and I'm just going to make sure. I'm going to try to get it for you. You probably see me real big right now. Hi. You don't need to see me that big. But yeah. Sorry. When you go to the browser, it's on the left. It looks like a little piece of paper. So here I am. Let me start broadcasting again. Okay. My browser was in the right place. Here it is. Okay. There we go. All right. So here we are on the BarMax on the browser. You get to your essays over here on the left. If you look at the icons, that's your home page. The third one down is office hours. The fourth one down is the little piece of paper. So when you're on the browser, actually, so you don't have to be on a computer, you just have to be on the browser, then you can submit it right here. And it doesn't look like that. I'm sorry, that's people's names and private information. That's what it looks like to me because I'm a grader. I'm sorry, that was the grading sheet. That was a big mistake. Sorry. I thought I got out of it. Yikes. Oh man. I am all technical difficulties today. Here we go. Let's stay here. This is safer. I have done a lot of these to be having trouble. But anyway, Tamina, that's where you upload your essays. And I've answered that one. And also under the Mbe Study Aid sections, there are not answers to all the wrong answers, right? So NCBE did not provide wrong answer explanations. We used to not provide wrong answer explanations for any of the questions. And the reasoning was that we feel like we wanted our students to be doing the active learning and not passively waiting for somebody to explain to them, right? We thought that having, doing an open book and then the right answer explanation tends to, explain also why the wrong answers are wrong. But, we got feedback from students. People were, a lot of people were fine with it, but some people were very unhappy about not having wrong answer explanations. So we've been filling them in everywhere on the website. And those are the most recent questions. They were not given to us with NCBE answer explanations. So we're filling them in, but you're right, they are not all done yet. So you're not missing anything, Anonymous. It's just that's, something that's in process. But if you read the right answer explanations, they do tend to explain it. And if not, there's the message board in the upper right. Okay, so Marie, when I was talking about the first stage where you're going through stuff, you're doing essays and multiple choice questions all at the same time, okay? So where was I? I got lost again. Okay, so you're doing essays and multiple choice questions all at the same time. And you're doing, multiple choice questions and essays through here. And here you're mostly doing essays and performance tests, and then you're doing everything here. Okay, you're reviewing multiple choice questions and essays. Okay, so you're always doing essays and multiple choice questions for the most part. Okay. I can't see office hours in my BarMax. Anivi, I don't know if that's because it was recently added and you may need to either update or delete and reinstall. But if you can't fix it that way, then do reach out to support. It is not a separate product. You should be able to see it, okay? So it's, oh, and that's the thing. It's now, first it was on a computer, now it's on the iPad. It's coming to the Android. Updates go through like a process of being submitted. So this is like our latest, newest live content. We also have new flashcards that have appeared, and there's some glitches there that are all being fixed. So basically, you're here early in the process of this season's updates, where we are adding a whole bunch of great new content and actually more flashcards to come. But the computer version or the browser version, in here in the browser, I'm on my iPad, okay, but I can still open the browser, okay? I can open all of BarMax. Oh, whoops. Not that one. Anyway, I can open all of BarMax in the browser like I had it open a minute ago. Yeah. So you don't have to be on a computer. You just open, Safari on your iPad or whatever it is. Okay, again, I've already answered that one, but September, we don't have any updated information as far as we know. It's on paper. The Mbe Study Aid is at the bottom of your Mbe questions in both the California UBE and Mbe courses. how many performance tests, and how many essays to write out. So it depends how you're doing, right? If you are having trouble with your writing, then buy more essay reviews and turn in more essays. If for outlining, how many should you outline? I say for civil procedure, all of them for the last 10 years. That's about 20 essays. And the reason why is because we don't have many MBE questions for civil procedure. Okay, there just aren't. They haven't released many because it's only been on the exam since 2015. So I say read, outline, and look at the sample answer for all of the civil procedure questions. In fact, if you're a California student and you want to do that, I'm not sure if we're including the past MEE questions in your packet yet, but we were talking about doing that. If we haven't done it yet, we have them bundled. We can send them to you. Reach out to support if you want a packet of MEE questions. California people should not write out answers to the MEE questions. They're a different style. They're a 30-minute, much more straightforward essay than a California essay question, but you can use them as hypos. You can use them for content study. You can absolutely read the analysis. And we really recommend the last 10 years or so for civil procedure to do every one. For the other topics, just, as many as you want. Some people pass the bar with doing very few. Some people do a whole lot. So it's what works for you to feel like you have a strong grasp on each of the subjects. Maybe you're already strong in one area, so you don't need as many essays there, but you want to work on more essays in some of the areas where conceptually it's more difficult for you. Yeah, so the cramming. When do you do cramming and memorizing? Someone's asked, should it be the last 2 or 3 weeks? That's where I'm comfortable with it. I think the last 1 to 2 weeks is also good for some people. Yeah, you want to make sure that you're reviewing your OPEs, your multiple choice 100-question tests during that time. You're reviewing, outlining essays like we just talked about with civil procedure. Any essay subjects that you're weak in, if wills isn't your thing, then you want to do a few extra wills questions that way. So you want to be doing that while you're memorizing and doing your flashcards and everything else. So last 2 to 3 weeks seems to work for a lot of people, yeah. So don't worry too much about memorizing before then. Worry about comprehending and applying. I answered that one. I answered that one. I guess I didn't answer it fast enough, so it popped up again. Answered that one twice. Attorney exam version of the California bar. Man, David, I wish I were more familiar with the attorney exam because I'm going to need you to reach out to our team for that one, because California is one of the bars I haven't taken, and I should know what's on the attorney exam, and I don't know the best way to prepare for it. So I'm not going to make something up. Mayron and our California teachers can help you. So send us a note and we'll figure out a way to get that one answered for you. And we wish you all the best. Thank you. Yeah, so rest and be good to yourself. MBE or MPT? Oh, can you just take the MBE or the MPT? No, not live. You're taking an actual, no, some jurisdictions do allow you to take one part of the exam and not the others, but I don't know which ones they are offhand. I know, for example, that if you have a passing MBE score, multiple choice score, in the last 3 years, what Florida considers passing, Florida will only make you take the Florida part of the exam, and you can skip the MBE part of the exam and still be an attorney in Florida. But I don't know what the rules of each jurisdiction are with stuff like that. where in the app is office hours? In the Android app, it's not up yet, it's coming, but in the iPad app, it's a little clock on the left. If you have an Android device, you could try opening a browser and it'll be behind the little clock for office hours. On the left, how can I buy essays in my app? That is an excellent question. And I am not sure. There is a place to buy essays in the app. There's a place to buy stuff, you know, where we can like take your money online, or you can call support or sales, and either one, and they can help you out, or reach out to them in chat. Azim, if you reach out to them in chat, they're actually here to help you. And I'm mostly here to answer questions about studying, and I'm not as good at the other stuff, am I? Your job in New York requires you take the exam at the next test available. Well, in that case, Sawanter, it sounds like you need to get online and look at the exam dates in the various jurisdictions. If you're a BarMax student, hit support, the little headset, and send that question to me directly, because I do have somewhere in here a list of the deadlines, and we can find you a state. Okay, let's do it. Let's make this happen. I want to help you out, but you know, I can't like do that right now in front of everybody. That's a very specific situation, but I do have the deadlines for the different states. So if you've got the resources to travel to another state, you can find out if there's a way for you to make it happen. If your job requires the bar exam, but you know, like a federal job, but does not require New York licensing, then that may be the way to go for you. How to use the OPEs. How many times do we do a practice run? Marna, there are 4 OPEs. Each one of those you should set up like a practice half day of examination for yourself. Do it 100 questions timed in 3 hours. Okay? And then use them for the following week. For the following week, use those questions as study tools. So when you do OPE 1, use OPE 1 as a study tool for the whole week afterwards. When you do OPE 2, use OPE 2, those questions, those 100 multiple choice questions, as a study tool for the week after. And same with 3 and 4. Bare minimum typing speed. Okay, I don't know how to say your name. Ishchakwe? How about Ahmed? Ahmed, I can say. I'm sorry about that one. I shouldn't have even tried because it's listed first last, but maybe it's last first. Anyway, typing speed. This is a great question. We recommend that everyone type. Handwriting disadvantages people. And we've talked about it in some other essays, or in some other webinars. Handwriting does disadvantage people. People have passed with handwriting. Most people write about 30 words a minute, 30, 32 words a minute. If you can get your typing up, even anything above that, I can see even here, you know, you have a few typos, right? Just practice typing. Do your practice exams typed. Type out the rules when you're working on your outline. Or take a, if you're typing, you know, 3-finger or whatever, then take a little few typing drills online, like buy a little online typing tutorial program. You've got plenty of time between now and September, right? So don't use it learning to cook like Julia Child, or do that, but use part of the time learning to get your typing fluency to where you're comfortable. But people handwrite about 30, 35 words a minute. So if you can get your typing there, or anything faster and fluid, you know, to where it's not frustrating for you and difficult for your reader, then that's the way to go, to where you feel comfortable, you know, typing out your essays. Yeah, it's worth doing that fine. Now, that being said, I know I teased you for your typos, but they're all the legible kind. You know, when you write FO instead of, that happens to all of us. It happens on the bar exam. It's not going to hurt your score. Just, you know, try to reduce it to a minimum to not be distracting for your reader. So Kuljit, we talked about that question. You know, it really is dependent on your personal situation, what you need in your life. Just make sure you understand the rules for all the jurisdictions involved, especially, the one where you eventually want to be a lawyer. Okay. I answered that one. Baseline exam you should take before you start studying. We don't, actually. We don't. I mean, if you want to do one of the OPEs now, you can, but we expect you to do terrible. This is a good time for me to go back to this testimonial here, right? We didn't really look at all of them, but this particular guy, the one who was working, where is it? 50, where did I put him? He was working 50 hours a week and had kids at home, and I've lost his testimonial. It's in here somewhere. He said he was missing most of the questions at the beginning. It doesn't really matter. Here we go. It doesn't really matter which questions you miss at the beginning. At the start, I remembered nothing and got every single answer wrong. Okay, this is a guy who scored like over the moon on the bar exam. Who cares what your score is today? I care what your score is on September 9th and 10th or September 30th, October 1st. That's what I care about. So I would rather you save those online practice exams to use for actual diagnostic practice, speed practice, pacing practice, and diagnostic practice later. Don't do them now. I don't think there's a need to do that. Let's see, we also have over here, this was a foreign lawyer with 4 young children, full-time job. I found reviewing the MBE questions very helpful. BarMax providing explanations how to arrive at the right answer. And I want you to arrive at that right answer yourself. And our online materials are concise. Another thing about diagnostic tests, they typically are comprised of fake questions anyway. So we don't have fake questions, so we don't give you a fake diagnostic. In terms of registering for New York, I can't help you there. I don't work for BOLE. I only know what I hear from our students about what's going on there and what I read on the website, which is, of course, the exact same stuff you read on the website. So, I know it is tough to get a hold of them. I know that they are in that application period right now that's only for, top, recent graduates of law schools from New York schools, from law schools in the state of New York. And that all of our, foreign lawyers, we have a lot of foreign lawyers who take BarMax, all of our retakers, all of our out-of-state people from other law schools, you're all struggling with a lot of uncertainty right now. And I know that, but I can't help you with the BOLE side of it. I can just help you by letting you know that we're here for you. I actually personally went through a lot of uncertainty the first time I took the bar. Because something had happened that it was unclear whether I was going to be able to sit for the bar exam on the day that I was registered to sit for the bar exam. This was Massachusetts in the year, and every day I just got up and studied. I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm taking the bar exam in July or not, but I know what my job is. And my job is to study for the bar exam. And see, this was the first time I took a bar exam. So I was taking one of our competitors' courses, and I thought I had to study 16 hours a day. So that was my life, between going to class and then, trying to cram all these fake questions every night and trying to get through large numbers of them instead of just a few hours of very focused study, which is what we recommend instead. And a lot of our students have found success with. The uncertainty is hard, but you just do what you got to do. And I'm sorry to see so many people going through this, but a lot of people are going through a lot right now, and we're all just, in one way or another in it together. So, will a typo reduce the marks? Okay, so if you have so many typos that your product is difficult to understand, then yes. In terms of grammatical errors and spelling errors on the MPT, and I think the California Performance Test as well, that matters because your job is to produce something that looks like a lawyer wrote it, and lawyers are good with language. If you're not good with language, I do include some tips in the other webinars on, get better at that, because it can reduce your performance test score if you have grammatical errors and spelling errors, particularly grammatical and sense errors that can affect, the readability of stuff. They're not supposed to take it off. Most states are not supposed to grade down on the essays, the substantive essays for stuff like that, but we all think they do, because it's human nature to say, this is a less, this is a worse answer. This is a less valid answer because of the spelling and grammar stuff. Maybe not human nature, but it's lawyer nature. Lawyers are very proud of our use of language. So if that's a struggle for you, you want to, do the best you can. And again, you have time. I recommended a book. It's called The Red Book, not the one by Chairman Mao, the one by Brian Garner, Garner. I recommended that for grammar, for writing tips for people. Now, you only asked about typos, and for overall, if typos and grammatical errors reduce the readability, make it hard for your reader to understand what you're trying to say, then yes, it will reduce your grade potentially. Otherwise, maybe not. A few typos definitely won't. The best answers can have a few typos. So it just depends on how serious and how much it either makes it look like you don't know what you're talking about, even when you do, or how much it makes it difficult for your reader to read. How many essays should be practiced in California? This is the same as the answer I gave before, which was general for all essays, but as many as you need to do to feel that you're confident in writing them, first in just writing them well, and then in writing them timed, okay? So that's how many you should write out. After that, you should just be outlining and reviewing in order to get that law embedded in your brain. So students are sharing helpful information with each other. So Cooljit, look at what Swanter wrote. Swatanter, I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm probably mispronouncing a lot of names. The Italian one is the only one I got right, I'm sure. Unless he pronounces it an American way, I don't know. I'm sorry, I start to get punchy after about an hour and a half, and we're almost up to 2 hours. But we're doing well here, and I'm trying to take the rest of the Q&A that I can. Digital scratch paper. Oh, that's interesting. So digital scratch paper within the BarMax platform. I don't know about that. I think we need to add that if that is going to be offered for any UBE jurisdiction or any California jurisdiction, but Florida, you need to worry about that more for the Florida side of your exam, the essay side of your exam, and the Florida side of your exam, to worry about the scratch paper issue. So because it doesn't affect like the UBE and California students yet, I don't think we do have digital scratch paper yet, but that would be a great feature to figure out how to add to the extent it gets added to more exams. That's very interesting to learn about. So we already talked about that. I'm looking at some of the earlier questions. Will this negatively affect the curve for the September bar exam? That's interesting. I don't know. Maybe I think they curve the particular questions. They know what things are difficult. Maybe it'll just have a different pass rate. I just don't know. Answered. Should you listen to all the lectures again? Again, I think I covered that too. Only if it's helpful to you. Learning through practice with the multiple choice and the practice essays. I love how you called it that. Learning through practice is the best way to go. In what way can having an additional 2-3 months be a blessing and a curse? Well, we talked about it, but you're not going to make it a curse. You're going to make it a blessing because you're going to get strong at the things that you want to get strong at, and you're still going to have a life. When doing the MBE questions open book, do we look at our outline before or after answering the question? 100% before you select an answer choice. Wow, that was an important clarification. Before you select an answer, because once you select an answer, you now have a bias. You go, oh yeah, I get it. Before you select an answer, look at the rule and make sure you know which rule applies. So that is it for Q&A. There are still over 100 of you who hung out here for this entire 2 hours. Again, I mentioned some discounts at the top of the program there, and you will get an email about that. That can apply to any of our courses, and it can apply to any tutoring. I'm a tutor, and we have some other fantastic tutors, including some specific to California. You can purchase hourly tutoring a la carte, or you can purchase tutoring packages, and those discounts that you're going to get in your email, the discount code can apply to tutoring as well as to our packages. And again, we've shown this in the other webinars, but we have students who have been, foreign lawyers, which I saw some of you, pointing that out. We have students who've been parents. We had that Canadian student testimonial earlier who was both a foreign student and a parent. And, various life challenges. And yet they pass. We're here for you. We've expanded our program to use new resources, to provide new resources. I will be doing live office hours like this for the BarMax students through the whole program. So, we hope to really see you on board. I hope this webinar has been helpful, and I just want to wish you all the best with your future bar exam success. Bye-bye.